It's time to go inside the papers now, and joining us this morning is Dawn Neeson, and former editor of the Daily Star, and Olympian Chris Akabusi. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Great to have you with us. Dawn, let's start with you, shall we? Really shocking scenes coming out of China.
Yes, this is, I've picked this story because I was working in China and was thrown out of the country for being a journalist, so this one is quite important to me. But basically, Chinese protesters are revolting over the COVID lockdown rules, which we know are incredibly strict out there. I mean, people are literally barricaded into their own homes. There was one horrific story recently where a lady was locked in with her daughter, and she threw herself off the balcony because she took her own life because she couldn't cope with the lockdown. But, I mean, obviously China is a very dangerous place to have a revolt, as we all know, from Tiananmen Square, which is 1989, that long ago. But protesters are marching and chanting in most of the big cities. Not that many. 300 people were surrounded by police in Beijing as they were chanting. I think you mentioned it earlier on, Stephen. There was a fire recently, and the COVID lockdown rules meant that people died in the fire because people couldn't get to rescue them.
Yeah.
So people are, it's a bit like what's happening in Iran. It's one of those countries where you think this uprising is never going to happen, and it actually is. It's happening in Iran, it's happening now in China. And the thing is, the Chinese aren't actually clamping, Tiananmen Square, they just clamped down straight away, didn't they? Stopped it. Who can forget that image of that man standing in front of the tank? But Tiananmen Square riots, that was mainly students. So the difference here with the protests about lockdown is it's across all walks of society. It's not just the students, it's the white-collar, middle classes, if China has such a thing, the professionals, as well as the ordinary workers. So it'd be very interesting to see how the Chinese authorities react. But the COVID policies, I mean, they are still, I think they're the last country in the world that are insisting on a zero COVID policy.
Yeah.
Which is...
it seems an odd way of doing it, I've got to be honest.
Well, the biggest protests were in Wuhan, where COVID originally started.
Chris, have a look at The Guardian, which has decided to go back to its old adage of blaming everything on Brexit.
Yeah, that's exactly it, everything. So I used to be part and parcel of a sort of peer group management event, and there was an executive of the NHS there. This was like 2010, and there was struggles in the NHS way back then, so this is nothing new. This one here is talking about the doctors and the fact that there's going to be 4,285 fewer doctors around them pre-Brexit, and they include people like anaesthetists, people working with children, psychiatrists, and health and heart and lungs, which has impacts on surgery. Now, they're blaming the limits on free movement, extra bureaucracy, higher costs and paperwork. But fundamentally, the challenge is the NHS isn't working. There are too many of us who require too much help, and then because of COVID and those policies, people having not been diagnosed in time, they're all flooding in now, and of course, every winter we have this same problem. So it's the same old story, but rehashed. Okay, there are 4,000 fewer doctors than pre-Brexit. We've got to sort out bureaucracy.
Yeah, but isn't it interesting that even amidst all of these problems with the NHS, even Keir Starmer, Mr. I want a second referendum at the time, is now saying, well, we don't sort out staffing problems with the NHS by immigration. We have to train people at home.
Yeah, but again, I love that. That's a medium to long-term strategy, isn't it? Because the challenge is today, it's this winter. So how do we sort out our challenges here in the here and now? Is there, for example, a point system where people who are qualified have a quicker access to the bureaucracy, so that they can be in our operating theatres here and now, straight away? How do we ease that right now?
There is actually a visa system for important staff that are needed over here that does fast-track them through. So this is, I think Stephen nailed it when this is The Guardian doing what The Guardian do and just blaming Brexit for pretty much everything.
Yeah, well, it's almost the old-fashioned version of clickbait, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. You're a Guardian reader, you're going to love blaming Brexit for everything.
Yeah.
Dawn, should we have a look at schools now from hospitals and private schools, and Starmer kind of engaging in class wars?
Yeah, absolutely. Going from the Guardian to the Daily Mail, two obviously politically opposing papers. The Guardian does what it's doing with Brexit, the Daily Mail's doing what it does with Labour, giving it a good kicking, basically. This is Keir Starmer is thinking of going back to the Jeremy Corbyn policy of making private schools non-charitable trusts. So at the moment they
have to pay tax.
Exactly, it's a 20% tax basically. So what the Mail are saying here is that it's a tax on, it will price a lot of ordinary working families, that phrase we use all the time at the moment, ordinary working families out of sending their children to private school because the fees will have to go up.
Look. This always
Stephen.
gets my goat. Ordinary working families, actual working class do not send their children to private school. It's not even an option. I get really irate when I hear people say, well, my parents had to save really hard to send me to private school. Yeah. Well, most families could save for a lifetime and not be able to send you to a private school, so you're well off to begin with.
Yeah. So when they say ordinary working families, what they're probably is the aspirational middle class, the guys who may have started off working class but have built their own little business and worked very, very hard in their small, medium enterprise, and the payoff is they can send their children to a school where they will get a better benefit than they had in their own day.
People like Diane Abbott and Jeremy Corbyn's own parents who sent him to a private prep school.
Yeah, well, or someone like myself, for example. My children go to prep school or private school. I mean, I was brought up in a children's home. Yeah. But I value the education and want to make sure that my children benefit from the opportunities that I've had and that I can create for them.
And the thing is with this story as well, there are an awful lot. I mean, one that's close to my own heart from East London is the London Academy of Excellence, which benefits enormously from working with the private sector. And it's a shining example of the independent system that it's not a fee-paying school, but they benefit from working with private schools and even schools like Eton. And the kids at that school, which is really poor part of East London, do incredibly well. So I think, there is an argument for the private sector remaining as it is and not charging VAT. I'm sorry, Stephen, I disagree with you.
Well, yeah, but what do you, as someone then who sends their kids to private school, do you think they should have charitable status?
Oh dear me! But they've got it, haven't they? So
yeah, but they should keep it.
If the fees went up 20%, Chris, could you still afford to send your children to private school?
I probably could, but I know plenty who couldn't.
Yeah. And do you know what the other part of this is the children that you're talking about, Stephen, is it will probably impact on the number of children that are there by scholarship.
Yes, and bursaries. Yeah, absolutely.
Kids that are just there on merit.
And I think Chris is a brilliant example of someone that was, from a children's home. Of many things. But someone who's brought up in a children's home and has achieved and can send his children.
Yeah.
To a private.
I mean, it's 60% of my disposable income, so it is it's a lot. Yeah. You have to be really committed and want your children to have it. So maybe it goes from 60% to 7%.
Yeah.
Can you still do it?
Yeah.
I have to say, I might be the only person on the panel this morning, but I would go with Labour on this one. I would say, in effect, private schools are for better off children, for the privileged in society, and that's not a criticism, but the privileged in society. So why do these businesses not pay VAT?
And the other thing with this, if you can't afford to send your children to private school if Labour push this through, it will force, I think it's another 900,000 pupils back into the state sector, 90,000 back into the state sector.
Yes, well,
that could be a good thing, I guess that could be a good thing because then they might, people like myself who want the best for your children, might put a lot of pressure on the state sector to elevate its performances as well.
Maybe. Love to get your thoughts on that. GBViews, gbnews.uk.
Got us talking, isn't it?
Yeah. Chris, what's going on with Matt Hancock then?
So I mean,
come on, Chris, you've been watching it avidly, haven't you?
I haven't, but I do understand Matt Hancock and what it is that he's doing. If you think a branding exercise and a realignment, and before we went in, he was robotic, a chancer, and fake.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Now when he comes back out, he's courageous, he's got stickability, and he's been amiable. You know?
Yeah.
So
human.
Yeah, it's been human, yeah. So you can see where he's going, and answering the question, I'm a celebrity, get me out of it. No, I want to be a celebrity, get me in there.
Yeah.
It should have been what, and I get it. If I was managing Matt Hancock, straight away you'd know, okay, we've got to leverage this opportunity, and you're getting some adverts, you're getting pantomime, for example.
Yeah.
He would be nasty Nick, he'd be the nasty guy, you know, and he would show a love, but be really, really nasty. Leverage that, and then TV adverts, maybe on here, review the papers, review guys.
Oh no!
I told you, but I would leverage it, and then eventually, you know, he'll start, because his brand has been changed. He'll start doing the proper adverts. He might host a TV program himself. You can see where it's going. He's not going to be. I mean, he could be dissected anyway, but he's not going to stay as a politician.
No,
is
it's
done.
not. No, definitely not.
No.
And so
That is but you forget this. I mean, look at Piers Morgan. You know,
Yes.
You're really not helping this morning, Stephen.
Well, no, but you know, newspaper editor who had to resign over a scandal at the paper.
Yes.
And reinvented himself.
Exactly.
I mean, now presenting a very unsuccessful program. But I mean, that's another story.
Here's who? Sorry.
Well, yeah, but you know, it's a similar tale, isn't it?
Dawn, what do you make then? Do you reckon it's a risk that's paid off for Matt Hancock?
I certainly think it's mission accomplished for him and his PR team. And make no mistake, he's had a huge PR team out there.
Precisely.
TikTok, videos, Facebook, Instagram, social media, all over the place. Really, vote Matt, vote Matt. And he's predicted to earn $2 million over the next year from being a celebrity.
Yeah.
I just don't want him to ever hug me. I'm sorry.
Well, no, fair enough. Look, we're going to leave it there. Dawn, Chris, thank you. We'll catch up with you
both.
a little bit later on.